Well, good evening, everybody out there in internet land. Hello, hi, and how you doing? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to the Thursday night session of Chattin on the Porch. Good to have y'all here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are one day away from any number of great and wonderful things. For example, the weekend. For example, Flag Day. As our dear friend Miss Gypsy points out, check this out, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Pre-celebration day. And you never quite know what the Supreme Court's going to come up with, even though they were a little bit of a bust today, but I'll explain that in a moment. We're on Rumble, we are on YouTube, we are on Twitter. So as always, your humble host asks you a small favor. Please send out a Twitter, a Git, a Gab, or whatever you may got. Whatever you're doing out there on social media, send out the word to your friends, share the link far and wide, tell them to come on in, and as they do, tell them to come through the door and give a thumbs up on both Rumble and YouTube before we even get this thing started. That way, it's already out of the way and nobody has to worry about it. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, known in some circles as the fine fella in the fedora, and I am, above all else, known as your host. Again, we're on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and we are on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. And we're out here spreading the good word, spreading cheer, trying to give, like the song, our intro song says, reasons for hope. Anyway, it's so good to have you guys here for the last regular nightly session through the week of Chatting on the Porch. And this weekend we'll get together for Front Porch Brunch, where we'll kind of expand it out a little bit, talk about some stuff. I'm trying to gather up as many different things as I can, and we'll see what we got. Anyway, good to have you guys here tonight. Always a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to be hanging out with you. And just it's a joy to have you guys as part of the audience. Okay, let's get down to business. Let's see who's in the house first of all. Zippy's feeling very poetic tonight. I am one with the darkness. Trips in the dark. Be a cat, they said. It'll be fun. Zippy, I don't know what to do with you sometimes. I really don't, man. I don't know what to do with you. Okay, Brace Rules got nukes, so slowly improving. All right. Hello, Robert Lowry. Good to have you here with us tonight. WWG1 is over there on Rumble hanging out. TBA's over on Rumble hanging out. Gypsy's kind of, like a good hostess, kind of working both sides of both rooms. So appreciate that, Gypsy. You guys are totally awesome. Oh, today's your Friday. Oh, you got a 3-day weekend, girl. Tell you what, jealous. We are all very jealous of you. I am not going to lie. My work day was a complete crapshoot, which is the polite way of saying what I'm really thinking, but I'm going to keep it clean. Yesterday, I had to take a day off work, not because anything was wrong with me. I had a family member who needed a favor at the last minute, and I said, okay, let me check with work, see if it's cool. Everybody at work was cool. Fine, no problem. We did our thing yesterday. So I had my day off from work right in the middle of the week. I came back in this morning at my regular occupational job that actually affords me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. And my day turned into what Ruben Christopher Haynes describes right here. Shite show. Yes, Ruben, it was awful, just awful. I mean, I'm answering like gobs of emails. I've got things that are blowing up that I thought were under control. People are stressed out. People are crying. It's like, oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself, I go away for one day, one freaking day, and all hell breaks loose at my job. It's like, holy cow. But we got it all sorted out. We're on our way to getting everything straight. Yeah, you have days like that. You really do. But that's okay. By the end of the day, there was peace in the valley, relatively speaking. And I'm one day closer to Friday. I got a couple of friends of mine are wanting to go out and have dinner tomorrow night. And that's always cool because these two friends of mine are just very dear to my heart. I don't get as much chance to go out and run around with them as I used to. We used to ride bicycle on a regular basis, and just I'm for one reason or another, I'm not doing that much anymore. But anytime I can get together with them and hang out, always a pleasure to do it. So anyway, glad to have. Hang on. Glad to have you guys here. Got a few things to go over, and one of them, I guess, I have to start off. It's kind of local to me, and you get to a point in your life when you realize that you're old enough not to be young, and you're young enough not to be old. But then when you get the news of someone's passing, you just kind of feel like a little part of your life or a little part of your childhood's gone. And that kind of happened to me the other night. I don't know if you guys had heard about this or how much, consideration you've given to it, but last night word came out that a legend in the basketball world passed away. And the reason that I say this one kind of hits close to home is because this guy was close to my home. Jerry West, one of the greatest basketball players ever, dies at age 86. He was a sharpshooting, high-scoring Hall of Fame guard for the Lakers and later an executive with the team. His image became the NBA logo. Now, if you're wondering what they mean by his image became the NBA logo, let me show you something here. See this silhouetted basketball player dribbling left hand? Kind of got the right hand up here. That is actually, a lot of people have conjectured, and more or less it's been confirmed, that they took the image of Jerry West when he was playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. This was probably somewhere, and I've seen the picture, so I know which one they're talking about, but probably somewhere in the late 60s or the early 70s, and they silhouetted his image and turned it into part of the logo for the modern National Basketball Association. Now, I say this one kind of hits close to home because Jerry West is from my home state. He grew up in an area known as Chillian, West Virginia. You could be driving interstate from my house to Chillian. You can be there in just about an hour. I mean, it's just past Charleston, maybe about 10 miles, and you're at Jerry West's hometown. In his college playing days, he played for West Virginia University and led them to the national championship game his senior year. They didn't win it, but he gave it everything he had. I think they played Kentucky. He went up against one of Adolph Rupp's legendary basketball teams. And West went on to become a very successful NBA player in his own right, a very successful executive with the Los Angeles Lakers. He spent most of his post-basketball playing days as an executive for the Lakers, and then he went to work for a little while for the Memphis Grizzlies. But West was absolutely one of the most phenomenal talents that you'll ever see. He's just amazing. And in kind of an interesting side note, as a basketball fan, so forgive me here for a moment. I'm going to fanboy for a second. I am a huge Boston Celtics fan. I don't follow the modern Celtics as much as I did back maybe when Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and those guys were playing back in the 80s. But I am a Celtics fan through and through. And of course, the Lakers and the Celtics were those great rivalries that go back into the 1960s. And Jerry West, after his playing days, would never set foot in Boston. That's how much he hated the Celtics. Loved their fans. Don't get me wrong. He loved their fans. He had nothing against their fans. It was just the whole Celtics culture and everything else. He's like, I'll never set foot in Boston. And he never did. Never did. So yeah, that the fact that Jerry West passed away last night kind of hits close to home. And on a side note, and Jerry, if you're listening to this up there, I'm not trying to rub this in on you, but I just want you to know my Celtics are up 3-0 on the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals. Sorry, I'm not trying to make your trip to heaven any less pleasant, but I just want you to know your most hated rival, they're still kicking butt in the NBA. Just saying. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, when someone, that you love their work, regardless of what occupation or they're in. It really hits home. Zippy over on Rumble with a Rumble rant. Thank you very much, sir. You're not alone. The voices in my head also do not know what to do with me. Yeah, well, if there's any consolation, I've got voices in my head too. Maybe they're the same people. I don't know. But I appreciate the Rumble rant. Thank you very much, sir. It's very kind of you. TBA says, Jerry won't mind that you're thinking about him. Well, look, he may have played for the wrong team, but you know what? You gotta acknowledge talent. And Jerry West was one of the best, which, by the way, if I may for just a moment, defend my home state. I do my best not to be, how shall we say, reactionarily provincial when it comes to people talking about my state. What do I mean by that? Now, look, let's just be honest about it. Being from West Virginia, there are usually a lot of wisecracks made about the people of my state and my state in general. For example, in West Virginia, the family tree is usually a stick. West Virginians walk around with a limp because one leg is shorter than the other from where they're climbing all those hills all the time. Or, usually people hear West Virginia, they think of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. Or all kinds of stereotypes have gone on down through the years. May I respectfully point out that my state is the home of 2 Nobel Prize winners, countless award-winning actors and actresses, countless award-winning college football coaches, more athletes in various sports than I can shake a stick at. Yet, more often than not, our state's never given us, West Virginia's never given a second thought. Now, some of that, like I said, is our own fault. I mean, West Virginians are notorious with their ability to make themselves look bad in the eyes of the world. But if people get past the misconceptions and the bad jokes, and they actually look at what my state has contributed to the world, they're going to realize, daggone. Which, by the way, the next time you get on a commercial airliner to go somewhere, just remember that jet engine airplane, the fact that you're flying faster than the speed of sound, the very first man to do that, Brigadier General Charles Chuck Yeager from Hamlin, West Virginia. So you just might want to keep that in mind. TBA says West Virginia is the best kept secret. I totally agree with that. Yeah, that's one of the Nobel Prize winners, John Forbes Nash. Grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia. Born in Bluefield and grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia. If you've ever watched the film A Beautiful Mind, that's the story of John Forbes Nash Jr. Now, Hollywood took some liberties with it, but it's still a pretty good story. And Russell Brand should have gotten the Academy Award that year. I mean, nothing against Denzel Washington, but Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe's performance was brilliant. He was brilliant as John Forbes Nash. But anyway, thought I'd pass that little bit on to you. Now, on another note, and I gotta do this one. I gotta fess up on this one. Ladies and gentlemen, I have failed you as a host. I really have. And libs of TikTok point this out, so I may as well just get this out of the way. My state, my city, is now the victim of virtue signaling. And what am I getting at? Well, about call it a week ago now, we have given over to woke virtue signaling. What am I talking about? This is in the intersection of one of the main streets in my hometown. The city where I live took it upon themselves to do a rainbow crosswalk and a rainbow diamond, whatever the heck that thing is in the middle. I don't know. I and this was sold on the grounds of beautification and whatever else. WWG1 says it's national news. Yeah, we've made national news. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, look, here's where I come down on it. I mean, just since I brought it up, I have no problem. If this had just been done for the beautification of the city, okay, I might not agree with it practically, but whatever. Fine. I got no problem with that. But more often than not, and this is an example of it, it's being done, to show our pride. So I have a question for everybody who got behind this idea. And again, I'm not trying to bash them. I'm not. But can I please ask the proponents of this and other things like this around the country a question? Tell me something. Did you like gays and lesbians less before you did this? Now I can just hear people out there that are going, not you guys. I'm talking about the proponents of this stuff going, huh? I'll ask the question again. Did you dislike gays and lesbians less before you did this? No, I know what their answer is going to be. The answer is, well, of course not. We love gay and lesbian people. Okay, fine. All right, cool. Then why do you need to do this? Well, we need to show people that we are accepting and loving of people who are gay and lesbians. And people can't do that through the example of how they live their life. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of straight people in my hometown who have next door neighbors who are gay or lesbian. I very rarely, if ever, hear of any problems between those individuals, be they gays or straights. I can't believe I'm next door neighbor to a straight. I'm next door neighbor to a gay person. No, they more or less live their lives, hang out together, say hello to each other. My point is, by the example and the way they live their lives, they prove their acceptance and tolerance. Okay? Why do we need to do this virtue signaling crap? All right, and lay aside the question of even the virtue signal. Let's just talk about the practicality of this. You know what happened 24 hours after the street got opened up, after this thing got painted? Bunch of people just started peeling out, doing burnouts on this stuff to try and put black skid marks on the whole thing. Zippy with another Rumble rant. Thank you again. Cult of pride before the fall. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, first of all, it's impractical. And again, I am not against beautification projects. And if that had been the reason why we do this, fine. And again, I don't agree with the practicality of it, but I get it. Okay? But we did this as far as I'm concerned for virtue signaling. That's all we did it for. We need to show the world that we love gays and lesbians. Okay. Yeah, Robert, I can't disagree with you. It has nothing to do with pride. Pride in what? Pride in what? I mean, I'm asking what I think is a simple question. Reasonable question, not more than anything else. Zippy says pride is the jingle. Yeah. How much? Good question too. How much money? Yeah. Exactly. Just stuff like this just kind of makes me nuts. And now it's here in my hometown. Zippy says I'm against beautification projects. Maintenance is all you need. Yeah, I'm a little more worried about, making sure there's not potholes in the streets and that sort of thing. Just saying. Anywho, so some news from close to home. I thought I'd share that stuff with you. All right, let's get on to some other things. Not a lot of stuff tonight, primarily only because I didn't have a chance to really prep the show the way I wanted to, but there are some big news items that have happened today, and they definitely deserve our attention, as you might expect. So let's get right into it. So President Biden is currently overseas. And in that vein, we do have an update on a story from yesterday. TheHill.com reported that the press secretary for the White House, Karine Jean-Claude Pierre, gave an answer to a question about whether or not the president would be willing to commutate the sentence of Hunter Biden. And remember what commutation is. It's not eliminating the verdict of the court. Hunter would still be found guilty related to the gun charges, but commutation reduces the amount of time he would serve, which the sentence hasn't even happened yet. Okay. But yeah, going back to a previous point, that's a good question. Makes you wonder. WWG1 says Delaware isn't overseas, is it? No, he's not in Delaware. Believe it or not, he is in Italy right now. Southern Italy, as a matter of fact. No, he hasn't gone back on his word. Actually, she didn't deny that the president was thinking about it. She just said, I haven't talked to him about it. So she sort of gives this very vague answer. Well, today, Joe Biden came out and definitively said what he's going to do. I take you to, again, thehill.com. Biden rules out commuting son Hunter's sentence. Biden on Thursday ruled out the possibility of commuting the sentence of his son Hunter Biden after a jury delivered a guilty verdict this week on 3 charges related to the purchase of a gun in 2018. This article is by Alex Gangitano. Biden was asked by a reporter whether he would commute his son's sentence while leaving the stage at the end of a press conference at the Group of 7 summit alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, to which Biden responded, no. Well, I've got the actual answer to the question, and y'all give me a second and I'll get this thing pulled up real fast. Because, it gives it's more than just a one-word answer. So, one moment, let me get this thing put together here. Let's make sure that the sound doesn't do something weird to me here. All right. Here is Joe Biden at the G7 summit and a press conference he's holding with Volodymyr Zelensky. And as always, fellas, give me a sound check. And here we go.
With regard to the question regarding the family, I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter.
Whoop, hang on.
He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know. And I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. And I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Okay, there you go. So the president has spoken, and he will not pardon, nor will he commute. So I still don't believe it. I had a brief exchange with one of my favorite people to follow on social media, Sasha Stone. And she's kind of like me. Sasha doesn't believe it. Neither do I. I still say Biden's going to wait till after the election before he does anything related to Hunter as far as like getting rid of his sentence. So there you go. Oh, no, I did not see this. Oh, I tell you what, you know my rule. Tag me on a tweet. Let me see it. We'll put it up there. That was funny. Now, there were things that did get attention related to Biden at the G7 summit. Now, I've got to play this for you, and I'm going to try to put this in some measure of context. And as with all of these events, there's always certain, what do I want to say? Carnival sort of atmosphere. In other words, certain events are set up, displays, things for the dignitaries, etc. Well, this year at the G7 summit, the host, which was the nation of Italy, set up a group of parachute artists to parachute into a landing area, and the flags that you can put on the back, or at least you can unfurl them and let them fly as you're parachuting in. Well, that's what they did for a flag for each nation represented by the G7. Okay, so that sets this up. Well, Biden had a wandering around moment, which he is prone to do with these sort of things. So I'm going to put this up here. Now, to be fair to Biden, and I really can't believe I'm doing that, but to be fair to Biden, he's actually talking to someone while all this is going on. So I want to set this up. This is this fellow in the blue is the last parachuter to come in. He's got a flag that's made specifically for the G7 summit, and he's the last one to drop. Okay, so all the leaders of all the other G7 nations are standing there behind Biden, and that sets this up. So watch this. Okay, so you see Biden now. He's starting to wander off. Now he is actually talking to somebody. Okay, so here goes the Prime Minister of Italy. She's gonna go over there and go, hey Joe, hey, come on back. We got a photo thing here. Joe's like, what? What's this? Okay, now let me put on my sunglasses. Yeah, taking some pictures. Yeah, I remember this last weekend having a discussion with some family members of mine. I think I told you guys about this. Thank you, ma'am. I'll check that out momentarily. Having a discussion with some family members, and one of them was like, well, that poor old man, he's got his physical problems, and I don't think people ought to be picking on him. And I said, well, now, wait a minute. I understand that. I get that. But that sort of begs the question. Should a person with his issues, and we can debate what they are, should a person with his issues really be representing the United States on the world stage? And it's moments like that just kind of, and various others. I mean, Lord knows there was others. We'll play another one here in just a second. Gypsy just sent me something. And, okay. Yeah, I see what you're talking about. All right, let me get this pulled up here real quick. We definitely got to play this one. This is too good. Hang on, y'all. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we definitely got to put this one in. So apparently, the fly that tends to bother... Whoa, what the heck is up with that man's hair? Oh, Lord. Okay. All right, y'all. Apparently, that fly that was bothering Mike Pence during one of the debates followed poor old Joe Biden over to Europe. And, yep. Yeah, exactly. That Pence fly gets around, man. He really gets around. Just saying. All right, let's check this out. This runs about 23 seconds. Here we go. Oh my God. Okay, all right, Joe, I don't know what kind of aftershave you're wearing or soap you're using or what the heck ever, but dude, it is time to change out. I mean, seriously, you got problems here, man. Oh no, WWG1, that's awful. That's what happens when you wipe your bum and touch your face right after it. Ew. See, there you all go. I play what is a simply innocent sort of thing, and y'all just automatically go to the poop conspiracies. Jeez. Everybody's asking the same question. Did he poop himself? Did he crap his pants? I mean, oh my God. Y'all are awful. Just awful. Oh no, WWG, assuming he didn't use toilet paper after wiping his. Oh, you guys are awful. Jeez. Anyway, yes, the Pence fly has found its way over to Europe and is now pestering another American politician. Terrible, terrible, I say. Now, we laugh at all this. However, there are some pretty serious things, and none of them, in my opinion, really good, that came out of the G7 summit. And I don't know. Well, no, I take that back. I know what I think of it. I just can't believe these people are being this brazen on a whole bunch of different levels. So let's just get into it. This is from the Associated Press, and I don't know if you guys have seen this yet or not. G7 summit opens with a deal to use, now listen to this, Russian assets for Ukraine as Italy flexes its right-wing muscles. Article by Nicole Winfield, Paolo Santalucia, and Colleen Long. I can't believe I got Santalucia right. I'm from West Virginia. Anyway, a Group of Seven summit opened Thursday with agreement reached on a U.S. proposal to back a $50 billion loan to Ukraine using frozen Russian assets as the collateral, giving Kiev a strong show of support even as Europe's political chessboard shifts to the right. President Joe Biden said the agreement would tap into the windfall profits on some of $280 billion in frozen Russian assets held in Europe, would put that money to work for Ukraine. Quote, another reminder to Putin, we're not backing down. In fact, we're standing together against this illegal aggression, Biden said at the evening press conference with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at his side. And the picture of the young lady there is Giorgia Meloni, who's the Prime Minister of Italy. I don't think she's going to make my list of future ex-wives, but not a bad-looking lady. Anyway, sorry, I digressed. The agreement was hashed out hours before Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni opened the summit at a luxury resort in southern Italy, saying she wanted the message of the meeting to be one of dialogue with the global south and unity. She compared the G7 to the ancient olive branches that are the symbol of the Puglia region, with their solid roots and branches projected toward the future. Beyond discussing Ukraine, the war in Gaza, and China's industrial policy, Pope Francis will become the first pope to address a G7 summit, adding a dash of celebrity and moral authority to the annual gathering. He'll be speaking on Friday about the promises and perils of artificial intelligence, but is expected to also renew his appeal for a peaceful end to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. The G7 includes Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Italy, which is hosting the summit, has invited several African leaders, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, Kenyan President William Ruto, and Tunisian President Kais Saied, to press Meloni's development and migration initiatives on the continent. Okay, let's get into this. Okay, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I don't disagree with you. Good-looking lady. I'm just saying she might not make my list of future ex-wives. Just saying. Okay, guys, I don't know about y'all, but I got a serious problem with this. We've been talking on my channel, and other people have been talking about this on other channels for quite some time now. In the U.S., there are several, I want to say it's million. I don't think it's in the billions, but I'm pretty sure it's multi-million dollars. Multi-million dollars of assets that we have frozen that belong to the Russians. Now, it's a pretty significant amount of money. Like I said, I keep thinking it's like $330 million. Europe has considerably more than that. We're talking multiple billions of dollars of Russian assets that are currently frozen. Okay. Now, what they're proposing, at least as I understand it, doesn't go as far as what Biden wanted to do. Biden at one point was kicking around the idea, Well, why don't we just look? We've got the assets frozen. Why don't we just go ahead and turn around and give it to the Ukrainians, and they can use that in their war against the Russians? In other words, just flat out unilaterally steal the assets and just give it to the enemy of the Russians. Now, maybe this is a more sophisticated way of doing it than Biden initially proposed. We shall see. $330 million, TBA says. Okay, that's the number. That's the number that I'm remembering. Okay. That's the number I'm remembering. This is a bad idea on so many levels. Here's my question. Let's assume for a moment that the Ukrainians bail on this $50 billion loan, which is what's being called. It's being called a loan, not a gift, not a whatever, a loan. So if the Ukrainians go belly up on this loan and they can't pay it, who's stuck with it? Okay, hang on a minute. All right. We will take a look at this. We'll take a look at it. Who gets stuck with the bill on this? If Ukraine defaults on this loan, however the payment arrangements are set up, who gets stuck with it? Now, that's one thing, and I don't have the article pulled up here, but that is one thing that the finance ministers of all these European countries are scared to death of. We're going to use their Russian assets as the collateral to secure this stuff. What happens if the Russians win this war with Ukraine, which frankly they're going to? I mean, they've almost got it won now. No one in the West wants to admit it, and the press is never going to tell you that. But if you listen to people like the Duran, the Gaggle, Colonel Douglas McGregor, and many others, they're going to tell you flat out, yeah, the Russians are advancing everywhere on the battlefield, and there's not a whole lot left that the Ukrainians can do about it. But if Russia wins and they take back those assets somehow, even though they're being held by other banks of other nations, what happens to the $50 billion and who gets stuck with the tab? Because the U.S., under this plan, is underwriting this thing. In other words, we're on the hook for it, or at least part of it anyway. And plus, let's take it one step further. Let's say that this is Biden. This is the ultimate formation of Biden's plan. In other words, take the assets belonging to the Russians and just give it to the Ukrainians. Keep in mind, this is something we have never done before. And it didn't matter who we were at war with. And officially, we're not even at war with the Russians. Although, let's be honest, it's a proxy war. Everybody knows it. Okay? But even with a nation that we were directly at war with, we never did something like this. If we were holding their assets, okay, we were holding their assets. We weren't turning around and giving it to the enemy of our enemy or something like that. This is going, and if I were the Russians, the moment that these assets become unfrozen in these European banks, I'd pull every dime of it and I'd put it in Saudi Arabia or Dubai or I don't think the Japanese. The Japanese might be going along with this. I'd put it in Korea, South Korea, anywhere that the G7 or particularly the Europeans can't mess around with them. I mean, look, there's some people on this that are far better at this sort of thing than I am because this is geopolitics and geofinance. But at a bare minimum, stuff like this is going to discourage nations to invest their money in the United States. Why? Well, think about it for a second. If you cannot be guaranteed that you cannot get your assets back once you put them in a United States bank, why would you ever put your nation's assets to work in a bank that's housed in the United States of America or Great Britain or France or Germany? Name the country. It doesn't necessarily have to be us. This is going to sow distrust between the Treasury departments and the finance ministers of nations all around the world. Like I said, it won't altogether stop nations from putting money into the banks in other nations, but daggone if it's not going to make a serious depressive effort. TBA says as soon as the USA steals Russia's assets, then every other country will take back their assets that are stored here. Bingo. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all. Not at all. Aw, hello, dear. You do what you got to do. We love you. You just get better. And by the way, before you ask, we will be here Saturday morning, 10:30. But if you are taking that morning to sleep, no problem. But honey, we love you. Get better. Okay? Glad you're here with us. And this is true. This is true. Must say. Yeah, she's not the conservative populist that she likes to paint herself to be. She's done some backdoor deals. She's done quite a few of them by people's observation. Just saying. So, yeah. So there's now this was the first. Now, if you think this is bad, it gets worse. Okay. You know, we're joking around about the fact you should never let Biden loose on his own out in the world. Well, there's sort of a reason for that. You could have something very mild happen like that photo incident, and then you could have our next story, which just, oh, Lord almighty, this is just awful. From the Washington Post, check this out. Biden and Zelensky sign a 10-year U.S.-Ukraine security deal at the G7 summit. The agreement, which Trump could undo if reelected, commits Washington to give Kiev long-term support. Unlike NATO, it doesn't require a U.S. military response if NATO is attacked. Article by Ellen Nakashima and Michael Birnbaum. We have the following. President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky planned Thursday to sign a 10-year security agreement that will commit Washington to supply Kiev with a wide range of military assistance, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said, in a bid to bolster Ukraine's fight with Russia. No, wait a minute. Before we get any further into this, no, this is not about bolstering Ukraine's fight against Russia. Screw that. This is about handcuffing Trump. A 10-year deal? I mean, think about this for a minute. Let's just assume that Trump wins in November, which I think is a good possibility. This deal, if it's left untouched, would run through the presidency of Donald Trump's second term. It would run through the first term of whoever the president is after Trump, and 2 years into the term of the next president. And this is crazy. Absolutely insane. I tell you, well, I'll give you some more thoughts on this here in a minute. Back to the article. The deal aims to commit future U.S. administrations to support Ukraine, even if former President Donald Trump wins November's election, officials said. It will be a framework for a long-term effort by the United States to develop Ukraine's armed forces, which have innovated on drone warfare and other cutting-edge technologies in the fight against Russia, but are also desperately outgunned and in need of modern weapons. Officials said they'd hoped the agreement would transcend political divisions within the United States, but acknowledged that Trump or any future president could withdraw from the legally binding executive agreement because it is not a treaty and will not be ratified by Congress. Thank God for that. Nor does it make any new commitments about Ukraine's prospects for joining the NATO Defense Alliance, which remain distant. Thank God for that. Moving on. Quote, we want to demonstrate that the U.S. supports the people of Ukraine, that we stand with them, and that we'll continue to help address their security needs, not just tomorrow, but out into the future, Sullivan told reporters on Air Force One as the president flew to a Group of 7 leaders summit in Italy's southern Puglia region. Hey, Jake, I got a better idea. You want to stand with the people of Ukraine? Help bring this slaughter to an end. You want to stand with the people of Ukraine? Get Ukraine and Russia to the negotiating table. Although at this point, if you guys offered either side the chance to go to the table, the Russians would look at you and go, pound sand. That's exactly what they'd tell you. And frankly, as well they should, given that not only did you once try to scuttle the negotiations, you twice did it, and now we're 2+ years deep into this damned infernal war that's getting Ukrainians killed left and right. You really want to stand with the people of Ukraine? Help end this war. Oh, TB, I agree. It's money laundering. It's absolute money laundering. Who's happy out of this deal? I'll tell you exactly who's happy out of this deal. Arms manufacturers, military industrial complex. That's who's happy out of this. And thank God indeed, that this is not a treaty that has to go before the Senate to be ratified. I mean, if Trump wins, tear this sucker up on day one. Done. Absolutely done. I mean, this is just madness. We've got to keep Project Ukraine going, as the boys from the Duran call it. Why? I mean, money laundering, yeah, it's money laundering. I don't doubt that at all. I mean, I have a question for Jake Sullivan and Blinken and all those guys that are really running foreign policy in the Biden White House. Because it sure ain't Biden. He doesn't even know where he's at. Are you so absent of a human soul? All you guys and women. Are you so absent of souls and so heartless and so cold-blooded and so cruel that you will let the people of Ukraine continue to be slaughtered against overwhelming odds and opposition that they cannot win against? Well, if we give them enough weapons, yeah, we pay enough defense contractors to manufacture these weapons, and we give it out of our stockpile. They replenish it back into our stockpile. And on the grift goes. In the name... Hey, you guys in the White House, I know you'll never watch this, but on the off chance that you do, in the name of God, if you have any decency, stop this. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men and women are dead because of you. And for what? Tell me, for what? You and those before you have been agitating and pushing this war. You finally pushed the Russians into it when they felt like they had no choice left. The Russians tried to get this thing negotiated in the first 6 months. You used Boris Johnson to kill the negotiations. And now thousands upon thousands of people are dead. Towns and cities and villages all across Ukraine are laying in ruin. You've got parents that are smuggling their children out of Ukraine because they don't want them to die on the battlefields. And for what? Because your hatred of the Russian government can have its bloodlust satisfied. Shame on you. Shame on you for what you're doing to the Ukrainian people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Putin's an angel in this thing. But then again, when your back's against the wall and you've been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, sooner or later you come out swinging. Well, he finally decided to do it. Shame on you for what you've done. The blood of the Ukrainian people is on your hands. God may forgive you, but I don't think the rest of us are gonna. Sorry, it's this kind of stupid that just makes me crazy. Yeah, it's war profiteering. Absolutely. Absolutely, brother. Zippy over on Rumble with a Rumble rant. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Why are we backing NATO in their fight against Russia? I don't have any idea. Well, I've got some suspicions. Chemical weapons labs, perhaps research into gain of function stuff, which Marco Rubio was right on the edge of getting Victoria Nuland to spill her guts before he got cut off. Grift, greasing the pockets of Ukrainian politicians who are stealing money hand over fist. TBA says they don't have any decency. That's why they continue to fuck over the whole world. Yeah, buddy, you got it. You got it. Sorry to bring such depressing news to you guys, but it needs to be talked about. It really does. It really does. It just breaks. Like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Putin and the Russian government are completely, they're saints or angels or whatever. I mean, the way I view Putin is probably a little different than a lot of people. Is he tough? Yes. Is he smart? Extremely. Does he care about his country? Deeply. Has he tried over the years to reach out to the West through various efforts? Yeah. And all of them are documented. I mean, it's not like I'm bringing out any top secrets here. What did he get for it? Not a lot. I had a discussion with a buddy of mine today who goes by the nickname Smiling Jack. And I got to give him a call tonight. I told him I would, and I will. I said to him in the phone conversation, I said, well, and WWG1, and you bring up the very thing that I said to him over on Rumble. Russia is no longer the Soviet Union. But in the eyes of the neoconservatives that dominate American foreign policy, they still view the nation of Russia as if it were the Soviet Union. And now that after we became the dominant superpower in the world in the early 1990s, the neocons decided they wanted to rub the Russians' noses in it. And for 20 or 30 years, that's just exactly what we've been doing in one form or another. And as I pointed out to my buddy Smiling Jack, you're talking about a nation that's over 1,000 years old. Deep and rich in culture and history and national pride. Defeated or not, you don't go rubbing somebody's nose in it the way we've been doing it for all these years and not expect there to be backlash. And now we've got it more than we can ever tolerate it. Hopefully, my friend, come November, that's part of what we're going to do. TBA says the neocons always want war. It's how they make their billions off the back of the U.S. taxpayers. Right on the nose, my friend. Right on the nose. Anyway, Gypsy sent me something a second ago. Let me find this real fast. Hang on just a second. Hang on. Oh, yeah, here it is. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. There was one more odd form of behavior. And I had not, I got to give Gypsy a lot of credit. Now, I'm not sucking up here, but I genuinely do mean this. She is amazingly good at catching stuff that I don't necessarily see on Twitter or something else like that. And she tweeted me in something, and I'll put it up here. Apparently, some of the members of the G7 were gathered around a table, and they're meeting with Zelensky. Oh, I saw that, sir. I saw that. We'll get to that. We'll do our best to get to that. So they're meeting around a table, and watch what happens. Zelensky, he just has like Pavlov's dog reaction here. Watch this. So there's Maloney, the prime minister. Biden walks in and whoo! Zelensky, he's up. Oh, we got to shake hands with him. Notice he's not shaking hands with anybody else, but he's definitely making sure Biden gets recognized. Then again, you got to take care of your sugar daddy. Just saying. Anyway, it's about, oh gosh, that really went longer than I thought it would. It is about 8:25 on Thursday night. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. That's a good way to describe it, Robert. That's a real good way to describe it. Zelensky had a money boner. Well, just saying. My name's Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. This is called Chattin on the Porch. We get together through the week and talk about items in the news, and this is our last regularly scheduled session through the week. Now, we're going to get together again this Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. for what's called Front Porch Brunch, where they'll go over some things I didn't get a chance to talk about this week, and Lord almighty, there's news all over the place. So plan on joining us Saturday morning at 10:30, but while you're here right now, do me a favor. Give me a thumbs up on Rumble. Give me a thumbs up on YouTube. Share the link around. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do so. Oh, by the way, by the by, I have to say hello to a brand new subscriber. And social media names are always very interesting. On Rumble, we have a new subscriber named Mr. Willie Big Dog. Maybe he's a former Clinton supporter. I have no idea. Anyway, Mr. Willie Big Dog is now a subscriber over on Rumble. So, Mr. Big Dog, welcome to Fedora Nation. We're glad to have you. And if you ever stop by, either on Rumble or on YouTube, drop a comment and chat. We want to say hello to you proper. But Mr. Willie Big Dog, thanks for becoming a subscriber on Rumble. I genuinely appreciate it. Folks, I think I'm about 2 subscribers away from 200 on Rumble. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but you know what? I've been working that Rumble side for a while, and it's for a lot of reasons. I am really happy with Rumble right now. I am not going to lie to you. It's starting to slowly build, and I am very, very happy about that. Okay, let's shift gears and come back and talk domestic politics, and more particularly, the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, as you and my audience know, the Supreme Court is just about to finish its term for the year. The term runs from the first Monday in October to June 30th of the following year. And the court had announced that they were going to be handing down decisions this morning, which they did. One of them we're going to look at, and I don't understand why they did this. Frankly, given what they did, I don't even understand why they took up the case. But that's the setup. Let's go to a tweet from Jonathan Turley, one of our favorite people to check in on all matters judicial. We are now 15 minutes away from the release of new opinions, which, by the way, the opinions are always released at 10 o'clock in the morning. If the court announces that they're going to release opinions, they always do it at or around 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay. So let's go back to his tweet. And the cases that they released, we have our first opinion, and it's the mifepristone case. It's FDA versus Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, and the author is Justice Kavanaugh for a unanimous court. Big win for abortion advocates in the FDA. The court holds that plaintiffs lack standing to challenge FDA regulations. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's see. The second opinion, Vidal versus Esther, the trademark case involving Trump Too Small, that's a case out of California where someone tried to trademark the phrase Trump Too Small, and they weren't allowed to do it. The third one is Starbucks versus McKinney, and going back to Turley's tweet, here it is. In the Starbucks case, Thomas again writes for the court that in ruling for Starbucks, raised the standard required for the National Labor Relations Board to seek judicial intervention to halt unfair labor practices. Okay. Oh, by the way, the court has announced that they will be issuing opinions tomorrow as well. It wasn't on their calendar, but they have announced it. Now, I bring all this up, and we'll take a look at one of these cases here in a minute, because like I said, I don't even understand why the Supreme Court even took this case, given what they did. Okay. The court had, if June 30th is indeed their deadline, okay, if June 30th is indeed their deadline to get all of their decisions out for the term, they now basically have 10 business days left to make that happen. Tomorrow, 4 days next week, because remember, Juneteenth is on a Wednesday. That's going to be a federal holiday. And then they'll have 5 days the very last week of June. Okay. So they've got 10 business days left to get out a bunch of very big decisions. And there are quite a few of them hanging out there that not only are going to affect potentially the administrative state, they're going to have effect on the 2024 election. Okay. So just keep your eyes open tomorrow. Supreme Court may be dropping some decisions on Friday. But let's go to this one case that Turley was referring to. And like I said, I don't understand why they even took the case given what they did. I've got an article here from Breitbart, and we're going to read most of this. Headline: SCOTUS dismisses abortion pill mandate case, upholds religious liberty. Article written by Ken Klukowski. We've got the following. Pro-life doctors lack standing to challenge Biden's abortion pill mandate, the Supreme Court unanimously held on Thursday, but paved the way for Republican-led states to challenge the mandate, and the decision is a win for religious liberty, affirming that pro-life doctors cannot be forced to participate in abortion. The FDA in 2016 and 2021, under Democrat presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden, relaxed regulatory access to mifepristone, an abortion drug that can be taken that could cause an early abortion. In a 9-0 opinion, the court held that the pro-life doctors lacked standing to sue and thus did not decide whether or not the regulation is illegal. Quote, several pro-life doctors and associations sued the FDA, arguing that FDA's actions violated the Administrative Procedures Act, but the plaintiffs do not prescribe or use mifepristone. Sorry for the butchering of that pronunciation, folks. And the FDA is not requiring them to do or refrain from doing anything, just as Brett Kavanaugh began for the court. Rather, the plaintiffs want the FDA to make this drug more difficult for other doctors to prescribe and for pregnant women to obtain. Under Article 3 of the Constitution, a plaintiff's desire to make a drug less available for others does not establish standing to sue. The threshold question of whether the plaintiffs have standing to sue under Article 3 of the Constitution. Article 3 is standing as a bedrock of constitutional requirement that this court has applied to all manner of important disputes. Standing is built on a single basic idea, the idea of separation of powers in the Constitution. Okay, here's my problem with this, and we'll go a little bit further with this article here in a second. Okay, my problem is this. Why? Okay, so now mifepristone. Oh, thank you. Thank God. Thank you very much. See, this is why I love my audience. Y'all are compassionate to your poor old West Virginia host. Mifepristone. Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Here's my problem. Why did the court even bother to take up this case? You mean to tell me that when the judges got together for their sit-down session to review cases to decide if they want to take them, they couldn't figure out that the plaintiffs in this had no standing? I mean, why even take the case? I mean, again, I'm no lawyer. I'm just a fellow that reads the news. But to me, this is a cop-out. It really is. Oh, well, that's why you know. Oh, okay then. I don't understand why the court even bothered to take up the case. I don't get it. If you're not going to rule on the merits, why bother? I mean, it would be one thing if somebody else had made the decision that the court should decide this, and then after the fact, they figured out, oh, okay, by the way, these plaintiffs don't have standing. There's really nothing we can do here. But the justices of the court are the ones that make the decision about whether or not they're going to take the case. You mean to tell me when these 9 justices got together in conference and they're reviewing cases to decide whether or not they should take it up and make a decision on it, that these 9 justices, all of them didn't realize at the time, oh, by the way, this one, these folks don't have standing. We should just automatically, we just say, no, okay, thank you for the appeal, but we're not going to take the case. This is crazy. I'm sorry, they just wasted everybody's time. Now, maybe I'm being too harsh on the Supreme Court here, but honestly, I don't think I am. If you're not going to decide on the merits of the case, then screw it. Don't take the thing, especially when you have the opportunity up front to review the case and you realize they don't have standing. We shouldn't even be bothering with this. Like I say, the logic of this one, I mean, it's like I say, it's not even so much that they determine that there's no standing, therefore we're not going to rule in favor of the plaintiff, in this case, these doctors. It's the fact that they even took the case at all. I hadn't seen Barnes's tweet yet. Had not seen his tweet. Have not seen it, but I will take a look at it. Give me 1 second here, folks. Maybe I can find this real fast. Because I was kind of wondering where Barnes was going to come down on this one. Da, 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 da. Oh, okay. I think I see where he's going with this. Okay. All right. Yeah, I do see where he's going with it. All right. Hang on. Let me put this up here. This is Robert Barnes, one of my favorites to check in with. And Gypsy, as always, thank you for this. SCOTUS's opinion today made the U.S. FDA and all government agencies above the law with no right to relief in court for most people. Again, standing. And that's what I was wondering where he's going to come down on this. This requires congressional action, authorize Americans to the right to judicial review when an agency denies their citizens' petition. Okay, now I see what he's getting at here. Now I see exactly what he's getting at. And he's right. I mean, the citizens did petition their government for a redress of grievance through the court and got absolutely nowhere. Oh, you don't have standing. You don't have standing. As always, Mr. Barnes makes a very good point. Gypsy, thank you very much on that one. Very much indeed. All right. Getting back to that article from Breitbart. Can't wait. And by the way, Sunday nights, 6 p.m., just go over to Rumble. They start out on YouTube, but they inevitably wind up going to Rumble. You know they're going to be talking about this case, and I really can't wait to see Barnes tee off on this one. Well, let's get back to that article from Breitbart. For a plaintiff, and this is again from the decision, for a plaintiff to get in the federal courthouse door and obtain a judicial determination of what the governing law is, the plaintiff cannot be a mere bystander, but instead must have a personal stake in the dispute, Kavanaugh explained. The requirement that the plaintiff possess a personal stake helps ensure the courts decide litigants' legal rights in specific cases, as Article 3 requires, and that courts do not opine on legal issues in response to citizens who might roam the country in search of governmental wrongdoing. Okay, now wait a minute, though. Wait a second. Yeah, Robert, and I think you're right. I think Barnes's tweet on this is absolutely right, because look at the way Kavanaugh phrased this. The requirement that the plaintiff possess a personal stake helps ensure that courts decide litigants' legal rights and that courts do not opine on legal issues in response to citizens who might roam the country in search of governmental wrongdoing. Go back to what Barnes just said said earlier today in his tweet. SCOTUS's opinion today puts the FDA and all government agencies above the law with no right to relief in court for most people. This requires congressional action to authorize Americans to the right to judicial review when an agency denies their citizens' petition. Okay, now I'm starting to understand. Yeah, Robert, I think you're absolutely right about this. Good point. Good point. Anyway, back to that article from Breitbart. Explaining that the constitutional concept of standing means courts will not act like a debating society by limiting who can sue. The standing requirement implements the framers' concept of proper and proper limited role of the courts in a democrat society. No, to me, you guys took a pass on this one. You really did. Now, in the opinion of the author, there is one upshot out of this that might actually be good. Personally, I don't really see it, but okay, we'll talk about it for a minute. All right. Again, going back to this article from Breitbart, then the opinion shifted gears, delivering a significant win for religious liberty regarding the EMTALA, which is the federal law requiring emergency rooms to provide medical care with regard to the patient's ability to pay. The pro-life doctors here expressed concern that the abortion pill mandate could force them to give these pills in the ER. EMTALA does not require doctors to perform abortions or provide abortion-related medical treatment over their conscience objections because EMTALA does not impose obligations on individual doctors, the court decided. We agree with the Solicitor General's representation that federal conscience protections provide broad coverage and will shield a doctor who doesn't want to provide care in violation of those protections. The states of Missouri, Kansas, and Idaho may bring their own challenges to the abortion pill mandate, as the Supreme Court's decision left open the possibility that others, perhaps states, might have standing to sue. Okay. All right, so it's kind of a mixed bag here. The consolidated cases of FDA versus Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine and Danco v. Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine in the Supreme Court of the United States. All right. So there you go. A mixed bag. Definitely, I don't think one of the Supreme Court's finest hours. To me, they just took a dodge on this one. Really big time. They took a dodge. Okay, some other items to get into in the last, I won't say the last little bit of time, but we got some remaining time here. Some polling information came out today, and kind of interesting. I always like to keep you guys abreast of this sort of thing. This is from Real Clear Politics. There's a general election poll that dropped today from Reuters and Ipsos, with Trump leading nationwide +2 head-to-head against Biden. But there's another poll that's come out, and I want to focus more on that one for a second. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, even if you're either here live or if you're going to be watching this later, you know that I've sort of been keeping an eye on the Commonwealth of Virginia. And this is where I wish Leanne was here tonight, because I think she's going to get a kick out of this. In 2020, Joe Biden won the Commonwealth of Virginia by 10 points. Biggest margin that a Democrat had won that state in probably 20 years. Okay. Now, we've been talking about for weeks and months now the nationwide shift that's going on in each individual state away from Biden and toward Trump. Now, in some states, like I've said all along, it won't make that big of a difference. Places like Massachusetts, California, others. New York, let's see what happens. That said, however, the shift starts becoming more pronounced in states like Minnesota, New Mexico, and Virginia. There's been some polls that have dropped recently, and I'll put them up on the board for you guys to review before we take a look at this new one. Again, from Real Clear Politics, if you take the last 4 polls, 2 of them show a dead tie between Biden and Trump. Some of them, which were done late last year, show Biden with a thin lead. Okay. But if you take the average of the 4 most recent polls that have been done, Biden barely, and I mean barely, has a lead in Virginia. Well, that sets up what we're about to look at next. This hasn't gotten out for official consumption yet, but there is a Twitter handle that I like to keep, that I follow on a regular basis. It's called Interactive Polls. There's a poll coming out of Virginia. It's probably going to drop in the news tomorrow. And this poll was just done over the 11th and the 12th. So we're talking in the past 72 hours. They went out in the field. They gathered their results. 851 likely voters. Margin of error is like 3.36%. Biden and Trump tied. Now, the headline number is interesting enough, but when you get into the guts of this thing, I want to show you some of this. And the way they've laid it out is very easy to read, very nice and easy to understand. I want to go over some highlights of this. And it wouldn't surprise me if Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, has seen this. This wouldn't surprise me if he talks about this on his show tomorrow, okay? But let's get into the guts of this thing, because there's some stuff here that definitely you guys are going to want to see. Matter of fact, there we go. Let's do it this way. Now, if you're looking at this, let me see if I can enlarge this to make it easier to read here. Yeah, I can do it. Good. Oh, that's even better. Fantastic. Okay. Here's the head-to-head. Trump, Biden, they're tied. RFK's pulling about 7%, assuming he's going to be on the ballot. Undecided, 12%. Here's Trump's favorability. Either very favorable or somewhat favorable, 45%. Biden, favorable, very favorable, somewhat favorable, 36%. Look at the unfavorables. Trump, 53%. Biden, 63%. And this is in the Commonwealth of Virginia, folks. Okay? Now, down here on the left is the chart that I want you to take a look at. Okay? Question. When President Trump was convicted of felony counts on falsifying business records, how did that affect your plan for the upcoming election for President of the United States? Stayed with Biden? Call it 40%. Stay with Trump? 38%. Trump to Biden. In other words, if you were going to vote for Trump, now you're going to vote for Biden, it's less than 1%. But look at the other ones here. Biden to Trump, 1.3. That now, even worse than that. Look at these undecideds. Okay, so here comes the verdict. He's found guilty on all these falsified business records. If you're an undecided voter to Biden, Biden picked up maybe, according to this poll, maybe 0.7%. 0.7%. Trump, on the other hand, he got over 3% of the undecided. When undecided voters in Virginia saw what happened to him up in Manhattan, over 3% of them, according to this poll, said, screw it, I'm voting for Trump. Okay? Yeah, and this chart up here makes it even bigger, okay? Take a look at this. Of the 6.2% that changed post-conviction, undecided to Trump, about 53%. Biden to Trump, 21%. Okay? Trump to Biden, yeah, you see what I'm talking. It's more like it breaks it out even more cleanly here. Folks, I am telling you right now, That decision in Manhattan is not having the effect that the Democrats were hoping for. And here is a state level poll. And again, it's less than 5 months to the election. We'll see what happens. But in Virginia, it could be a long night. A longer night than the Democrats have had in a long time. Now, do I think Trump will win it? No idea. If I'm going on the basis of the past 20 years, he's going to give it a great try. He might fall just a little bit short, only because the Democrats have such an advantage up in the collar counties around D.C. and over on the seashore by Norfolk, okay, the Chesapeake Bay area. Those are two major Democrat strongholds in Virginia. So that might be the only thing that saves Biden. But we'll see. I mean, right now you have got an absolute dead horse race, and Biden has got to spend money and personnel in the Commonwealth of Virginia, something Democrats haven't had to do in years. So let's see how this all shakes out. Anyway, thought I'd bring that to you. Now, I saw a story, and it kind of relates to this, and I'll bring it to your attention. You hear about Democrats having problems in Virginia. You hear about having problems in Minnesota. You hear about the fact that the Bronx is turning out thousands of people for a Trump rally. 100,000 people are showing up in New Jersey. Why is this? Why is it the Democrats are having such a problem and Trump's gathering all these people to him? Charlemagne the God has a theory on this. I saw this headline and I thought, now this is intriguing to me. I thought I'd share it with you guys. This comes from Breitbart. Check this out. Charlemagne the God blasts Democrats for failing to talk like real people. Radio host Charlemagne the God blasted Democrat leaders during a recent episode of Comedy Central's The Daily Show, saying they are fumbling their messaging because they sound inauthentic and stiff when addressing voters. He said GOP leaders, including former President Donald Trump, sound more relatable because they speak directly and without equivocation, though he said he abhors the message behind their rhetoric. Charlemagne the God took Democrats to task, saying they should learn how to talk like real people. Quote, "Listen, man, Democrats have a problem. It's not their policies. It's not their fundraising. It's not that Joe Biden started buffering at the June 19th party." It's a great way of putting it. No, the problem that they have is their messaging, or say it plainer, it's how they talk. Nobody wants to hear the normal political voice anymore. On the subject of Trump, Charlemagne the God said the following, quote, "He is a guy who knows what he wants and knows how to get it. The message is terrible, but it's clear. When he says build a wall, lock her up, I hate sharks, no one goes, I wonder what he means." He continued, "Folks appreciate when someone sounds authentic, even if their ideas are terrible." Okay, let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about this. I will half agree with Charlemagne on this one. I think he is right. I think people do appreciate it when you are genuine and you are forthright when you're communicating, okay? One thing there's a lot of things that can be said about the way the Democrats communicate with voters, okay? And again, I could sit here for the better part of probably a half an hour, 45 minutes going off about this. But they speak in code. They always have these wonderful phrases, okay? And from my perspective, they're always talking down to voters. I saw something today, and I did not have it pulled up, but I wish I had. Donnie Deutsch, okay, who's a big-time Biden supporter. He's on MSNBC all the time. He's on Morning Joe, hanging out with them. And he made the statement today. He said, it's the vote. I mean, more or less, in his words, it's the voters. I can't believe that 75 million people or more this time are actually supporting Donald Trump and his message. I'll agree with Charlemagne in that people want authenticity. I disagree with him, however, saying that it's their messaging. Oh, no, Charlemagne, the American people know very well what the Democrats are selling. They just don't want any of it anymore. I mean, the Democrats sold them, we're going to return to decency. They sold that we're going to return to normalcy. They sold that we'll get everything back to normal. All we got to do is get rid of Bad Man Orange. We got to get him out of office, and we can return the government back to the way it ought to be. Well, in the minds of the Democrats, the way the government ought to be is that it takes care of foreign-born people more so than it does its own citizens, that it gives away the American people's hard-earned tax dollars to nations who have absolutely no interest in the United States, that they let crime run rampant. Yeah, no, the American people are hearing very clearly what the Democrats are doing and saying. They just don't want any of it. Okay? But I think Charlemagne's got a point. When Trump is probably one of the most effective communicators you're ever going to find. Now, you may not agree with him on everything, and that's your right to do so. But as far as his ability to communicate what he wants to do and rally people to it, he's incredible. He's genuinely incredible. And the guy can talk to anyone. I've never seen him. He can talk to the rich. He can talk to the poor. He can talk to the middle class. He can talk to construction workers. He can talk to firefighters. He can talk to nurses. He can talk to people at fast food restaurants. I mean, the guy will talk to anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere. He'll take on all comers. Sometimes it gets him in trouble, but, you get my point. And when people come away from the conversation, they're like, I may not agree with him, but I know where he stands. Can't say that about the Democrats all the time. So if Democrats are having problems in places like Virginia or places like Minnesota or Jersey or New York or other normal Democrat strongholds, guys ought to look in the mirror because it's your own daggone fault. So there you go. Promised my friend Ruben I'd do something that he sent me, and Ruben's one of my favorite folk. But I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, and I think we've talked about this, but just in case we haven't, I will definitely put this up here. Here we go. Wall Street Journal. Behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping. Participants in meetings said the 81-year-old president performed poorly at times. The White House said Biden is sharp and his critics are playing partisan politics. I'm going to drop the link for this on both Rumble and YouTube. All right, there it is on Rumble. And here it is on the YouTube side. There we go. By Annie Linsky and Sibahan Hughes. When President Biden met with congressional leaders in the West Wing in January to negotiate a Ukraine funding deal, he spoke so softly at times that some participating struggled to hear him, according to 5 people familiar with the meeting. He read from notes to make obvious points, paused for extended periods, and sometimes closed his eyes for so long that some in the room wondered whether he had tuned out. In February, one-on-one chat in the Oval Office with House Speaker Mike Johnson, the president said a recent policy change by his administration that jeopardizes some big energy projects was just a study, according to 6 people told at the time about what Johnson said had happened. Johnson worried the president's memory had slipped about the details of his own policy. Last year, when Biden was negotiating with House Republicans to lift the debt ceiling, his demeanor and command of detail seemed to drift from one day to the next, according to then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and 2 others familiar with the talks. On some days, he had loose and spontaneous exchanges with Republicans, and on others, he mumbled and appeared to rely on notes. Quote, I used to meet with him when he was vice president. I'd go to his house. McCarthy said in an interview, he's not the same person. The 81-year-old Biden is the oldest person to hold the presidency. His age and cognitive fitness have become major issues for his campaign for a second term, both in the minds of voters and in attacks on him by Republicans. The White House and top aides said he remains a sharp and vigorous leader. Well, if he's so sharp and vigorous, I have a question. Why is it that when he comes back from the G7 summit in Italy, according to reports, he's going to spend 10 days at Camp David preparing for his debate with Donald Trump on June 27th? Shocked? Yeah, so was I. According to reports, now I found it from just one source. I have not heard this from two or more places, but according to one report I've seen, when he comes back from the G7 summit, he's going to Camp David for 10 days to prep for the debate. And Kellyanne Conway, and I don't have the clip pulled up, I wish I did. Kellyanne Conway brought up a really good point. You've been running for president since 2019. You've already been through one presidential election. You were in two presidential debates. You've been in public life for 50 years. You've been president for 4 years. Why do you need 10 days to prepare for a debate? That's a valid question. I mean, I could see taking maybe, a couple of days, maybe. Okay. You could take a couple of days, get ready for it. Why do you need 10 days to get ready for a debate against a guy that, in your mind, you kicked his butt in 2020 in the two presidential debates you had? TBA says, well, it's one of two things. Either he'll need nine of those days to sleep, or he'll have 9 days to get his entire blood supply cleaned out of all the drugs he had to take to stay awake for the G7 trip. And Robert says he's definitely a vigorous liar for sure. Well, can't disagree with that one either. Just saying. All right, folks, I tell you what, it's 9 o'clock. You guys have lives, and so do I. So let's bring the train into the station. We're going to be back this Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. for Front Porch Brunch. Like I said, the Supreme Court is supposed to drop some decisions tomorrow. And like I said, they're running out of time. So the big ones that are hanging out there, the immunity decision, the J7 decision, the Chevron deference decision, and a whole bunch of others, they're about to get decided. So if the court does hand down decisions tomorrow, keep your eyes open. And if they do, we're going to talk about it on Front Porch Brunch on Saturday morning at 10:30. So you guys have a great rest of your Thursday night. Have a great Friday. Get ready to go into the weekend, have a load of fun. And in the meanwhile, stay loose, stay happy, keep smiling. And remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, when he said, it's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. I love you guys, and we will see you Saturday morning.